the street artist named Hamlet, kind of Ukraine's Banksy, and he has a mural in Kharkiv, and it says, "Be a power bank to others." The city that we'd spent a few days in, he says, "It is life, it is death, it is everything." How do you possibly summarize it?
If I were on a long train ride there in Ukraine, I'd be freaking out, thinking the Russians are gonna bomb this rail line. Are you ever concerned with that when you're on the train? Lately, due to power outages, Joseph Lindsley has been reporting live from Ukraine in the dark. Joe, how are conditions there today?
Bob, good afternoon. Today I speak to you from Lviv in the west of Ukraine. And at the moment where I am, we have power and light and heat. So good news there. I took a 17-hour train ride from Kharkiv. So from about 30 miles from the Russian border, 17 hours through the night, arriving here in Lviv midday. And maybe just about an hour after I left Kharkiv for the first time, because this is the first time I've been to Kharkiv, Bob, and since the war started, where there have been no explosions. And then just about an hour after I left, there were reports of 3 explosions. I was still trying to get details on that, but I think it was largely air defense was successfully working. And so I guess I got out of there in time. And when I was in that city, I was showing around a Canadian YouTuber, Dan Weinberg. He's got a channel called The New Travel. And he came to Ukraine and wanted to see the country. I said, okay, let's go to the edge. Let's go to Kharkiv, to the edge of the free world. And as we were coming back, he said he was having trouble describing the city that we'd spent a few days in. He says, "It is life, it is death, it is everything." How do you possibly summarize it? Because, for example, a few days ago, we had gone to that neighborhood of North Saltivka, from which I spoke to you quite dramatically a few months ago when it was still under frequent shelling. And I remember how affected the audience was by hearing those stories from there. I brought Dan, the YouTuber, there. And fortunately, when we were there, it was peaceful, but it was, mostly in ruins and absolutely quiet. So the contrast from when I was there in September, when there was the sound of artillery, a few days ago, totally quiet, and people walking, carrying jugs of water in the freezing cold to their bombed out apartments. Every once in a while, there are tents set up. And these tents are called places of unbrokenness, and people can go in there to get heat and to get warm food. And after seeing that, Dan, the Canadian YouTuber, he couldn't talk for hours. He said it's impossible. The only thing I can say, he said, is that there's nothing to say. And it's sort of very stark, dramatic to see the suffering of these people and all the hell they've been to, and at the same time, from what is left of the city, to see an incredible spirit, the sense of resilience. I spoke to you a few days ago about the street artist named Hamlet, kind of Ukraine's Banksy, and he has a mural in Kharkiv, and it says, "Be a power bank to others." And power banks are very much in need here because of the frequent power outages. But this idea that each human being here in Ukraine can give energy to others, and I saw that so much in Kharkiv. I was in a pizza restaurant owned by a guy who's he wanted to have a pizza restaurant, but now he's an officer in the Ukrainian military. And we were sitting there. It's one of the few places that's still open, keeping people's spirits up, serving great Neapolitan pizza sort of amid the ruins. And we were talking with one of his friends who every morning goes swimming in a lake, even in the cold, and he showed us a video, even as you can hear the sound of the distant fighting and the artillery, and continues to go swimming every morning. And there's a sense of people sharing their resilience with each other. The central Christmas tree normally would be in the main square of Kharkiv, but you can't have things in public. It's too dangerous, and so they put the tree in the metro station. And so it's this refusal to give up, but also being intelligent and careful about it.
It's so great, Joseph, how you bring us those slices of life when we get the reports on most newscasts of bombs and destruction and so forth. And you, of course, keep us up to date on that. That's one thing. But what you bring us is something very different and special. And we so appreciate it. You mentioned a long train ride. If I were on a long train ride there in Ukraine, I'd be freaking out, thinking the Russians are gonna bomb this rail line. Are you ever concerned with that when you're on the train?
Yeah, the train is, in a way, it's very peaceful because you often don't have good cell service. So I just, for the most part, except for they have a small break, you can get off the train halfway. I turn my phone off. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if there's an error alarm. And you just let, it's a sort of a meditation. But you look, even all of the windows of the train are covered in tape. And that's a reminder that if there is some kind of blast, that mitigates the effect of the glass, flying into your face. And so even you see these little indications. Yeah, you get to the point beyond worrying about it and knowing that if you're moving fast, you're harder to hit in that way. So no, there wasn't much concern. And there's such a great sense of solidarity. I mean, the people that work for Ukrainian trains, I mean, they've kept these trains running, usually on time, which we can't really say the same, I think, in America without a war. And so there is such a sense of solidarity. And usually the conductors in their little room, they'll be cooking some borscht. And so you kind of feel like you're in someone's living room, and it's very welcoming atmosphere. And I love this idea, which I really felt in Kharkiv. I also feel it on the train, that everyone is in this together. And when I was speaking with that graffiti artist, Hamlet, he said he pointed out this beautiful old building in Kharkiv that's empty. And he said his dream is to make the first floor that a rehabilitation hospital for soldiers and civilians, including children, who lost a limb in the war, and then to make the second floor IT tech offices. And so it's a reminder that we're all in this together. But I think it's a good idea for America. Imagine walking into your office every day and you have to pass the people who are wounded because they made sacrifices for your freedom. And so that's a nice vision. But I feel that whether on the trains or walking around Kharkiv, this sense of real solidarity, everyone using their skills to help each other, and this idea to be a power bank for others.
So admirable. Let me leave you with this text we got from one of our regular listeners, Natalie. And it reads, please let Joe from Ukraine know that ESPN is having a special this Sunday regarding the Ukrainian soccer coach. He was in Chicago this past Tuesday. He got a tour of the Ukrainian neighborhood. He was very happy to see that the Ukrainian community is very involved in helping Ukraine. Thank you again for speaking with Joe every morning. Ukrainian Americans in Chicago appreciate that you speak to Joe and care about what is happening in Ukraine. Again, when Ukraine wins this terrible war, we would love to have a meet and greet with Joe and yourself. Again, thank you. Slava Ukraini. That was nice, wasn't it?
Yeah, Natalie Heroyam Slava. That's very nice. And, they've tried to play a few soccer games here during the war, but the games become as long as a baseball game because every time there's an alarm, there's no fans, but the players have to go pause the game and go into shelter. But yeah, I look forward to that and one day saying hello to y'all in Chicago.
Wouldn't that be wonderful? Joe, hope you have a peaceful weekend, and we will talk Monday.
Thank you, Bob. I'm going to the mountains, and I look forward to talk to you on Monday.
Be safe. As I've said before, Joseph Lindsley, world's most interesting man.
This I find in my garden. It's peace from rocket.
Help us to win in this war.